The learning and the experiences are what you're saying, they're in the journey. And that is why we always say that there is not only purpose in the pain, but there's hope in the journey. And it is a journey. And unfortunately, we have to take the good and the bad in order to have a complete experience. The thing I want to emphasize is the complete experience. At the end of that vacation, it also became about what our family went through together. And when you go through something with someone, it deepens the relationship, or it makes you realize that the relationship needs to end. But you can stay in things much longer than you should because you are not allowing yourself to fully experience where you are with a person or in life. And we ignore our feelings in that situation or with that person, or we are so fast to move on that we don't realize that, we're getting that nudge letting us know it's time to move on. And we can miss that nudge if we aren't in the moment.
That very thing has happened to me before where a friendship has ended. And I feel like in a way it was almost like a mutual but unspoken kind of ending. But
Oh,
at the same time, it is still hard to,
um,
see something like that go because you did have an investment in each other. And
mm-hmm.
I'm not the same person I was today that I was a year ago, 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, 5 years ago. And I think that's always the
Sure.
goal is growth,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
for those of us who want to grow. I know people who think that that's just for children. Literally had someone say, oh,
Mm.
well, growing together and learning together, yeah, that's for kids, not adults. And it's like, no, I think it's for anyone. I don't think it's age specific at all. I think that it's important, to grow. I mean, just think about if we didn't grow with the times,
Right.
we wouldn't have
Sure.
a podcast, we wouldn't have a computer, we wouldn't have so many things because
Right.
sometimes that's what you just have to do. So I you're but you're right, when you do go through something with someone, I feel like you either grow closer or you grow apart, and I don't know if there's an area in between that.
Yeah, I've stayed in relationships that have hurt me over and over again because I didn't pay attention to what my insides were saying, and our bodies talk to us and they let us know when we need to flee. And I don't know why I have done this. I think I learned super young to stay with people who are hurting me. So I actually have had to retrain myself. And it's been interesting to watch how I have grown over the years to take notice and allow myself to move on. And you and I have talked about this. I think that there is this gut feeling that we need to pay attention to. I think that there can be patterns that we need to pay attention to. And I know for me, I know how I feel around someone. I can instantly feel my heart go up. I can
Mm-hmm.
feel drained when someone leaves me. And if this continues, I know that this isn't good for me. And if I do not feel fueled or heard or believed or validated or feel that it is a reciprocal relationship or feel appreciated, it's time to move on.
Absolutely. I'd love to ask you a question, Anne. I'm putting you on the spot and I know it, but
Sure.
I love everything that you said. Truly, truly agree. What do you do? What is your advice? We have had people ask, well, what is your advice on if you feel that yucky way around someone, but they're, out to get you? Say they're an adult bully. How do you handle that where you can't get away from them, but you are so uncomfortable around them?
I have had these situations happen to me. And in order for people not to yuck my yum, I just ignore them and I enjoy in the moment and I don't allow them in my bubble, no matter how much they try.
That's a great point. I don't think people like to be ignored, so that seems a great way to diffuse a situation.
What I have found with the people who are either narcissistic or people who purposefully love to hurt you or push your buttons? even when you haven't done anything. Uh, you know, the more that you act like it bothers you, the more it fuels them.
Right,
And
right. I
so
think you're right.
they feel like they've won. And it's kind of interesting how when they realize that it takes two to play this game and you're not playing, they instantly don't have a reason to do it anymore. So, yeah.
That's good advice. That's good advice. We love the questions that we get on occasion, not all the time, but it's nice to be asked the question.
And that doesn't mean I'm right, but that's what I do.
But I like it. I think it is solid advice.
Yeah, lots of times, and that's a negative situation. And I know for me, one of my things is perseverating on things that are so negative all the time. And, time is so precious. And I wish so much that I didn't allow the negative in. I didn't allow those negative people in, their thoughts, their feelings, their definitions. I didn't
Mhm.
allow my own thoughts to control me so much. So, and then the other day I was driving down the street and I'm like, Ann, what are you doing? All you're doing this entire drive is thinking about something really negative. You're wasting your time. You're taking all your joy away. All of a sudden, I'm in a bad mood. And I'm just like, why are you doing this to yourself? So, I mean, time is too precious for that.
You are right. It is hard though, and this is what I would call to stop the spiral. It is so hard to stop the spiral, and I have not figured it out. In fact, I had a recent doctor appointment where we were talking about that very thing.
Mm,
And, again, the advice, it's not a one size fits all. My doctor said, I wish that I could just give you this pamphlet. Here you go. He said, I'd give it to everyone who
mm,
walked in the door. This is
mm.
all you got to do. And it's not as simple as we'll take the stress away. He even said, if you tell me that I have to become less stressed, I said, I'm going to knock you out right now. And he started laughing. He said, well, I know, life
That's funny.
just has stress in general and it's hard to do. But, he said, find what really works for you. Listen to your body. So for me, I know that sometimes when I'm
Mm,
feeling those moments of almost like all the fluttering, like the rapid heartbeat, and you feel like
hmm.
you just got to get away or something, it's
Yeah.
just too overwhelming, whatever the situation is. Physical activity is something that really helps. And on occasion, I think we've mentioned this a time or two before, but certain frequencies of music have healing properties in them. So I believe it's 528 megahertz. And I'll sometimes put that
That's
on just, yeah, it is really neat. It's really neat. It's you can look it up. You can look up the healing frequency. What is the healing frequency of music or tones? And I believe it's 528
wow.
megahertz. And it just does something in your brain where it just kind of calms everything down. And also maybe like a guided meditation that grounds you again, So maybe it's telling you to um, feel your fingertips, each one to your thumb, push each one, and it focuses you on the actual present moment. So, for some people, maybe physical activity would make that worse. Then, you have to find maybe it's painting, maybe it's a nap,
Mm,
maybe it's dancing,
hmm.
maybe it's sewing. I don't know
Hmm.
what it might be, but I would just encourage anyone listening who, in myself included, I have to try a lot harder to stop the spiral because
Right.
that is, for me, and in my opinion, the hardest thing to get out of. I've by no stretch have I even come close to mastering that.
Hmm. Well, you have to give yourself permission to do
Sure.
that. And
And
I
you need
know,
time, with so many kids
make
and
it
such a
time.
crazy schedule and just real life stuff, not complaining, just real life stuff. It is hard to make the time to deal with some of the emotions and things that need dealt with. There's not always that optimal time to do it.
No, no, there really isn't. Last night I needed me time, and normally I try to keep the same schedule as the kids to a certain degree because I still have one that needs me to be close.
Hmm.
So, but I stayed downstairs till midnight and I worked on things and I did me and I was just like, it felt so good. It felt so good.
Yes. I've been
But
staying up too late watching Prison Break.
yeah,
I'm
I
still,
was
yeah,
just gonna say watching Prison Break. If
yes,
you're
but
still
I love
here.
it. It makes sometimes you just need something that takes you out of your head.
Yeah.
And so for me, I guess that would be one thing
Hmm.
also that helps break the spiral. If I'm really interested in something that I'm watching, that helps me just stop. But
Sure,
sometimes you just
sure.
have to cut the cord. And
That's
and I don't
why
mean the TV cord, I just mean the thought cord.
that's why I watch Beverly Hills Housewives and things like that and the
That's so
reality
funny to me
shows.
for you.
Then I come back around and I'm like, my life isn't too bad. So
Yes,
what I
yes.
do. But I do have a question for you. Did you ever daydream as a child?
That's such a good question. I really have to think about that. I sure do now.
Oh,
Sometimes
okay.
I
Okay.
I really will catch myself, and is it considered a daydream if you are on occasion, my husband and I will both say, for example, pretend we won the lottery. What do you do with the money? And we just dream about it. I don't know if that's a
Sure.
daydream, but it's fun to think
Yeah.
out loud about what you would do. We don't even play the lottery, so there's not even a chance that any of these dreams would
Right.
be coming true. But
Right.
I, I often there's always a lot going on in my head, and
Mm.
I do find myself daydreaming. Usually, one time my therapist had me do. I don't. It wasn't maybe a daydream. I don't even know what the type of thing it was called for. It wasn't like EMDR or anything like that, but it was a type of therapy like that where she had me close my eyes and she had me kind of walk through some of the hard times of middle school and how I felt, and I remember
Mm.
saying I felt alone. And then she said, what would have made it better? Insert in my mind what would
Mm.
have made that situation better. And I did really, really well with, I can't think again what the name of that therapy is, but I did really well with that.
Mm.
And it was really good to kind of think like that because I guess I do think and I am such a visual person.
Right.
But I don't know. Sometimes I just daydream about what it would be like to live on a beach, what it would be like I do think about this a lot, what would it be like for my mom to be healthy and be able to enjoy, especially our youngest son. I feel like I feel like he would just be her favorite, she would just be cracking up at him every single
Mm.
day. So I think about things like that. I'm usually daydreaming about how I wish I could transform our house. Like I
Oh,
love to
sure.
watch HGTV, but I don't have any of
Mm.
that knowledge. I like to dream about what it would be like to live at the beach, and what it would be like to have my mom be healthy and
Sure.
with her mind being healthy. What about you? Do you daydream?
Well, I do daydream. And a lot of the things actually that you said was a different house. What if it was what ifs kind of things.
Yeah.
And this is kind of funny. What if well, because when you go through life and you think about forks in the road, and what if I would have chose this way? What if I would have,
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm
it,
so grateful. That kind of ties in. I didn't mean to interrupt, friend. I'm so
no,
sorry.
go ahead. Go
That
ahead.
that ties into what you had talked about earlier is or what we were talking about, living in the past or thinking about the future. I have
Right.
found myself thinking how grateful I am that I took the road that I did, that at the time I thought was so hard and so unfair. And boy, can I look back now and say, I am so glad that relationship didn't work out.
Oh,
Or how did I
okay.
not see that? Thank you for
Yeah.
just, leading me down this path. And I chose a different direction. Gosh,
Right.
could I imagine what it would be like if I chose this direction? The person I thought maybe I would marry one day, I didn't. And, I know that
Mm.
he has all girls. And it's like, how crazy would that be? My life would be so different. Like all I know are boys.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
so little things like that.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have my kids today if all these paths wouldn't have led right here. So,
Right.
I'm really grateful. Now, as a kid, though, I daydreamed and I had this whole imaginary world. And it was what got me through. I really do believe that. I had an imaginary family when I was in school. I was me, of course, but I mean, in my head, I was somebody else. And it was my way of, staying safe and being able to, handle all the chaos around me. But as I got older, it was a disservice because I continued to kind of do that, but I didn't face reality. So, and when I created this fantasy, it allowed me to stay in abusive relationships longer than I probably should have because I lived in the fantasy. So it kept me from moving forward and dealing in the very moment that I was in and addressing where I was in order to move. And I think we all have things that keep us in a bad place or with a bad person, even though everything in us is trying to tell us to move.
That's such a good point. I don't know that I fantasized in that way,
Mm,
but one of the things I most wanted as a young girl, I remember feeling alone. You know,
mm.
we moved to a complete different place with 2 weeks left of my fourth grade year, and that was a
Oh,
hard transition time.
oh,
But I
yeah.
understand the thought process of my parents. It was so that maybe I could make some new friends heading into summer before I started at a completely new school, not knowing anybody.
Mm,
So
true.
that part was hard. But even way before that, the thing I wanted most was a dad.
Mm,
And I hit the jackpot when my mom remarried,
mm,
and the dad who raised me has always felt like my dad. And I'm not,
mm,
I love my biological father as well, but the person instrumental in my life who raised me to be who I am today. And I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of who I am today. There are people who've had better or worse. I get that, but I feel like I've handled a lot of things so great. And my
mm,
mom and dad taught me so many great things. Not
mhm,
perfect, of course, like I'm not either, but that
mhm,
was the one thing I wanted so much so that when my mom started to date my dad, I was
mm,
5 years old. And I remember I don't know how long that they dated, but I remember around 6 years old, I asked, "Will you be my daddy?" We were
mhm.
just in the car, and he didn't know what to say. It caught him off guard so much. And of course, he ended up saying yes. We went through a formal adoption process, and the rest is history. But
What a
that is
beautiful
something.
story.
It's such a great story. So I really did luck out. And that was the one
Mm,
thing I remember. I just wanted a dad. There's something about a
mhm.
father-daughter
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah, yeah. I know. I
I
mean,
know you get it.
yeah, I know. I mean, walking you down the aisle and all that stuff. I mean, my brother was going to walk me down the aisle, my biological brother, and then my biological mom intervened, and then nobody showed up. So then
Oh, geez.
I had to ask my adopted mom to walk me down last minute. So I know. Those kind of things that you just are really important that, it's a snapshot in time. It's a memory
Mhm.
that you want that is supposed to be a normal memory for all people who are walking down the aisle. So, but it's funny, but my daughter, I adopted my older two and my younger one of the two, she was 3 and we went on a Christmas day. We had been seeing them for about a month, went to their house. It was Christmas. They experienced Christmas at their foster home that they had been at for 2 years. Okay. And she was only 3. So,
Wow.
and then we brought them back to our house for good. And one day she was just playing and she comes running over to me and she said, "You took me without saying please." And I said, "Honey, will you please live with us? And she said, sure. And then she just went off and continued
Oh,
studying. But, you don't realize how those things really affect somebody. And that it was just all she wanted was a please. So it was really
how
cute.
sweet. That is so, so sweet.
But I want to
I,
switch gears real fast. Can we switch gears real
yes.
quick? Because
Yeah.
I had the beautiful privilege of seeing Anne Frank's diary in person, and it was like being on sacred ground. It truly was. It was in a glass case. I mean, it was right in front of me, and it was so protected from anyone hurting it. And I could see her writing and read her words. And, she was a girl who was
Yeah.
stuck in walls and wasn't able to get out. And she created this dream world, kind of what we're talking about, and wrote in order to survive. And she did whatever it took. And even in her walls, she found a way to survive. And she found a way to move forward, even when she was not physically allowed to. So, a couple quotes from her. In her pain, she wrote, I do my best to please everybody, far more than they'd ever guess. I try to laugh it all off because I don't want to let them see my trouble.
Mm. I think that's what you were talking about in the very beginning of this episode.
Hmm.
And
I
yeah,
think
sometimes
that's,
we feel like we have to do that because you don't want the other person to see they've won or it's not the right time and place. It's hard when the right time is to feel all those feels.
I think that there are reasons for those, for doing that. And I mean, I don't want my kids to see my pain a lot of times. And I simply don't want to admit it to myself sometimes
Sure.
or deal with it. And I can picture Anne Frank being in those walls, daydreaming in her world of isolation and writing. And I can relate with this quote so much. I can shake off everything if I write. My sorrows disappear. My courage is reborn. Isn't that
That's
beautiful?
really powerful. It's almost like I don't know what form of, maybe therapy it is, but maybe it's just writing therapy, journaling,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Sometimes getting it out and just out of your head onto
yeah,
paper, it cleanses you and then you can
yeah.
move on. You can burn the paper, you could keep the paper, but it's there. That's so
Writing,
good.
creating, my photography, my drawing, writing a book, it's always been my way of getting through some of the hardest times of my life. And I can encourage everyone to find something that will help you get through too, because you need an outlet. You have to have an outlet.
Yes, I 100% agree. And just know that maybe it'll change as you change and grow and go throughout life. So don't give up. Keep finding what works for you in the season that you're in. And it might even be that it's different in different situations too.
Right. We can't rush past the pain. We have to feel it, learn from it. And sometimes it's the hurt that teaches us the most valuable lessons about ourselves and the world. And I know you love quotes. I don't know if you have anything for us today, Tina, but you know, your quotes oftentimes help move us forward. So I didn't know if you had
Well,
anything.
I do have one, and I'm sorry, my screen might be really messing with you at this point, and I don't mean to do that, but I was having some computer issues today. I'm going to leave you with, I think I'm going to leave you with this quote: "Be kind. Words don't rewind."
I say to my kids all the time, you you can't unsay something.
Right.
And some of the most painful things are the words. And I know that this is kind of cliche how the scars and the wounds, our physical wounds or whatever, they can heal, but the wounds that are inside oftentimes are the ones that remain. And words are the worst way that you can hurt somebody.
Absolutely true. You can't unsee and you can't unhear and you can't take back, what you say. You can apologize for it, but I think it's important we pick our words. So be kind. Words don't rewind.
Yeah. And I'm going to change that to that's one of the worst ways that you can hurt somebody because there are many ways that you can hurt somebody
That's
that's,
true.
yes, I do know that. So, anyway,
We want to leave you with this. Remember, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's by Peter Drucker. Don't wait for opportunity. You have to go out and you have to create it. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And that's by Zig Ziglar. Some people want it to happen, some people wish it to happen, others make it happen. If you don't take risks, you can't create a future. And I really believe in you. I know that you can believe in yourself. And I want to tell you that I was that person and I had to fake it until I made it, and I had to move forward no matter how hard it was, and I had to believe in myself before I really believed in myself, and I'm still doing that today, manifesting things and making things happen just because I'm getting out there and I'm doing it. You know, there was a thing that we had on our podcast recently where Ron Sanderson said that there were people who considered themselves lucky and people that considered themselves unlucky. And there was a research thing that this guy did, and he put a $20 bill in front of the coffee house that he invited all these people to, and I think it was like 80% of the people who thought they were lucky found it, and 20% of the people who thought that they were unlucky found it, and 80% didn't. So, you know, it really has to do with a mindset, and you can talk yourself into being different. I know circumstances are difficult, and circumstances sometimes are what they are, and they can really stink and they can be hard. You could be in the absolute worst possible place, but isn't that the place to begin? Isn't that? You have to begin where you are. You can't start 10 steps ahead from where you are because you have to start right where you are. So here at Real Talk, we're encouraging you to start right where you are, no matter where it is, no matter how hard it is, no matter where those valleys are, and just go through it and you will get to the other side. All right.
Thanks for joining us. This is Real Talk with Tina and Ann, and we will chat again next week.